Good day, and thank you all for taking time from busy schedules to join us for yet another webinar in IISE, the Institute of Industrial and Systems Engineers series that we've been doing now for 3 years, focused on global performance excellence. I'm joined today by Peter Hunter, who is a colleague of mine. I've worked known and for Peter for about 3 years, and we worked together for a short bit on the project that he's going to talk to you about, Peavey Industries. Peter will tell you a little bit more about his organization, and I'm really looking forward to getting an update on how Peavey has been using huddles and visible measurement systems to improve supply chain management performance. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to do a couple of minutes of tee up here, and then I'll pass the baton to Peter and let him share his experiences and tips and learnings with you. So thanks again for joining us. We're going to share how to get access to the recording, the presentation, the YouTube versions, and then also blogs that we'll do as the webinar goes along. We'll post these links for you as a chat. We actually, for this today, we actually PDF'd a copy of the presentation, and that's available for you to access, and so we'll provide the link for you to get to that. As we go along, I see some of you are chatting. That's great. Use the chat function to share comments and to share questions, and I'll monitor that. And if you have questions for Peter, I'll weave those into to the session today as we go along. For those of you who value certificates of participation, IISE will be mailing those out. You can expect them probably mid next week sometime. So be patient with that, and make sure that you check your spam folders, because sometimes they get stuck in those clutter of spam folders. This webinar is one of, as I said, some over 100 webinars we've done over the past 4 years. This is a screenshot of the IISE website. Their webinars are bucketed into 9 different categories. The one that Peter is sharing with you today will be in what we call our best practice case studies folder, so you can look there for the outputs of the session today. The themes that we've covered over the last 4 years, as I said, broadly really focus on performance excellence in general, but organizational and operational excellence, and range from operational analytics to cultures to support performance excellence, to integrated Lean Sigma, industry service and healthcare 4.0. So a broad range of topics. This webinar is the middle webinar in a trilogy of 3 that we're delivering that really focus on supply chain management as we enter what will probably prove to be a challenging 2023. We also, in Q4 of last year, we did a series of webinars, sort of a level above supply chain management. And those 3 webinars culminated in an article that was published in the ISE magazine in December of 2022. If you're interested in reading a copy of that article, which really summarizes those 3 webinars we did in September, October, November, this is a link that you can use to get to that article. As I mentioned, we're starting off the year with a trilogy of webinars that focus on challenges and opportunities that we will face specifically in supply chain management, but more broadly in organizational excellence in general. Last week on Friday, we had a great webinar by Jim Tompkins, Insightful Leadership on Supply Chain Management. As you look at your chat, you'll see that Saif and Daniel are sharing with you links to get to the recording and the PowerPoint presentation. You can get those at the IISE website. You can also get a YouTube version of the webinars from the Foyer Group YouTube channel. Today we have, as I mentioned, a best practice case study. So we're going to build off of what Jim said last Friday, shared with us last Friday about general supply chain management trends that we're going to experience in 2023 and beyond. And Peter will then lay the foundation for our webinar on the 9th of February. One of the things that we shared last Friday was David Poirier, who's the CEO of the Poirier Group, shares an annual message in January and says, hey people, this is what I see happening in the year. These are the priorities that I see as it relates to surviving and thriving in a year. This, as I said, will probably prove to be a very challenging year. Peter and I were talking before we went live here, and we were talking about headwinds. Everybody uses the concept economic headwinds, and in retail, for sure, you face that, and so it's going to be challenging. And so David said there are 6 things you really have to focus on. And Peter, I just put check marks beside the 3 things that I think specifically what you share with them today are really going to talk about. You know, developing and investing in talent. So the approach you've used is a culture. It's about shift in culture, but it's also about employing, engaging, and developing your employees to contribute to continuous improvement. And then building and growing business process improvement capabilities. I know you'll speak a lot about that. And then improving flow, obviously, and that's going to be a major theme. What you did with supply chain, in particular, your bird seed and feed category. As I mentioned, these products from the webinars are available in a number of different spots. They're available at the IISE website. They're available on the TPG website. And so you can avail yourselves of those. And here are the links to get to blogs that we've written, short articles that summarize the 55-minute webinars. So I'm going to now pass the baton to Peter. And Peter, I sort of jotted down what I think your storyline is. So I went through your presentation, and I think these 4 bullets sort of map to what the storyline really is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great, Scott. Thank you for sharing that.
So Peter, have at it. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to say, sharing your experiences, and I'll drive for you if you don't mind.
Okay. Thanks. We can move right to the next slide, if you would like. So I thought I'd share first, and thanks for having me, and thanks for joining. It's very exciting to share the Peavey journey with regard to how we implemented huddles and how it improved enterprise efficiency. So I just thought I'd give you a quick sort of bio of Peavey Industries, the LP. We've been operating since the mid-60s. We are Canada's largest independent farm and ranch retailer. We're employee and Canadian owned with 100 retail stores, and we run the ACE dealer network in Canada with 161 dealers. We do support community cooperatives because that's where our roots are in farm and agriculture, and we operate nationally across Canada. So I thought by saying I'm lucky enough to be the ambassador for Peavey Industries today, but what makes today's conversation possible is the vision and alignment of a senior leadership on fundamentally shifting how we do business, and then building and investing in the infrastructure, PMO, training and development, to bring that to life from an execution standpoint. So really, when we fundamentally changed our business, it's how we leveraged PPT, so people, process, and technology. And when I talk about technology, it's primarily information technology. So some significant enhancements and advancements to move from lagging to leading indicators, which created a data-driven approach to making decisions in our business, and a shift from silo or a linear type of model for doing business to a collaborative model in a team-centric approach. And then we also implemented end-to-end methodology. So we look holistically at programs and the impact they have both upstream and downstream, and we move through the entire value stream as we manage our business.
And when you say end to end, you really mean extended enterprise. So you're talking about vendors upstream and literally consumers downstream, right?
That is exactly correct. So and everything in between.
Yep.
So the methodology we really use is a really balanced approach and tying our people who we believe are the key and made a significant investment here to the process. So if we think about how we're applying the boxes here, it's the lens here is if we have the right people in role mastery trained, effectively doing the right process, our PMO follows a robust audit process on critical processes in the business so that we're aligned, and we take that through the lens of our customer. That will yield the financial results that we're looking for. And again, we're taking a data-driven approach. So there are key metrics that we use that drive our decisions across the value stream. So not only measuring success, but measuring and adjusting. So part of change is acknowledging that it's hard. So we committed to the patience and the discipline and the persistence to fundamentally change the way we do business. Sometimes we fell back. It sometimes felt wrong, but we really had faith in following the process, and we were committed to the process. So over time, we've got extreme engagement from all areas of the business and effectively moving the needle on efficiency.
Peter, one comment. When I was working with you guys, I thought I experienced what I would call patient impatience.
That's correct.
I think that you guys had a great balance. Culturally, you had a great balance of, yes, patience, but at the same time, you had a sense of urgency. You had a sense of, you knew that you wanted to move. You wanted to move fast. You wanted to be agile. You wanted to move faster than you had been moving in the past. And I think that's a really critical fine line to establish culturally from a leadership perspective.
But I think the term agile is really appropriate here, is because as we have stood up puzzles across the organization, it's made us a much more agile business and allowed us to react correctly. So when we talk about performance huddles, we refer to that in our world as a short focused meeting. So it's data driven with leading and lagging indicators and with calls to action. So the lagging indicator is the primer for continuous innovation and improvement. And all levels of the organization, we've taken a tiered approach, and all levels of the organization engage in huddles. Now, obviously the metrics change on level, but the process remains the same. Enter the huddle, short burst meetings of 25 to 55 minutes, depending on the business unit and complexity. And then it's metric driven for us to make better decisions as we move along the work stream. So I didn't want to lose sight of the fact that we do have both cross-functional and business unit huddles. The birdseed huddle that we'll have a look at was our proof of concept. It was a true team-centric cross-functional group. We've established business units within the organization by category that are all cross-functional, and this is a fundamental approach again for us from a change for us from a linear model. So think of hot potato. I do some work, and the hot potato passes to the next group. To a collaborative effort where everybody in the value stream is collaborating in real time and has a voice at the table.
Yep.
So one of the things that to be successful, one of the things that we established early was to ensure that to have this healthy huddle in operation, it had to be one of high trust, so that we established a safe place and a safe environment for collaborative work. So, this is Steve Covey, and talks about the benefits of a high trust organization and the 7 consequences of the low trust organization. I tend to lean on the positive side. So think about increased value, accelerated growth, innovation, improved collaboration, partnering, better execution, and heightened loyalty, both to each other and to the organization.
Yeah, if anyone in the audience hasn't read this book, the book is called Speed of Trust, and it's a great read. It's really, really important. And I think, Peter, your point about, when people that have worked in sort of a silo system all of a sudden start talking with one another end to end in a value stream, they get to know each other and they get to sort of understand what's happening upstream and downstream of them. And that process of communicating and collaborating and working together really builds trust. That's a natural outgrowth of the huddle process.
Mm-hmm. And then I just, I'm not going to read through this slide, but important that, we view all of our associates as leaders in the organization. So when we get to a team-centric approach, hierarchy goes out the window. Every voice has value at the table, and we reflect on these key behaviors to drive and extend trust. And I think we could all agree that this creates for a great environment for collaboration, and it also creates a safe environment where everybody's voice can be brought to the table. I want to talk about supply chain a bit. Although we've rolled out huddles across the across the entire organization and enterprise, supply chain were really early adopters, and it's really where we started, an integral part of the development program, and really where we started with our bird feed pilot. So the bird feed pilot was our proof of concept model. So, and it did engage across the entire value stream and a large cross-functional group. So it was project managed by the project management office coming out. We then managed it and transitioned it to the business owners. So if you think about now, we're in a monitor and maintain to support the business after lifting it up. So the problem statement here was this was a very high growth retail category for us. And we were perpetually low in inventory to meet customer demand due to rising sales. So the objective was, hey, let's look at OTIF, so on time in full, to meet true customer demand. We decided on a best-in-class stock model of 90% in stock across the assortment. And I'm happy to share results with you. So when we started at the beginning of the pilot, we had a ratio of 69% on average in stock, and our current rate is stabilized at 92. Now we run between 91 and 94, but typically we're at 92% on our in stock. And that just, what that means in real world is our customers are delighted. They can get what they want on the shelf in store. So what does that mean? It's a 23% improvement, and our target was exceeded, which is a real success story. So how did we accomplish that? So the change model we use, and where we always start is the ADKAR model, create the awareness of why there's a need for change. We talk about what's in it for me to create that desire. And then again, we've stood up the PMO and the and training development teams in a robust way that we can deliver knowledge to give the enterprise the ability to execute. And again, right now we're in that measure and maintain, when that reinforcement as part of that birdseed huddle. So the birdseed pilot itself, we originally focused, and I'll get to this as well, but we went across the value stream. So when we talked about end to end, it really is from vendor to store. So we looked at CSL 1 through CSL 3, CSL 1 being inbound vendor, CSL 2 being how we handle it at the DCs, CSL 3 being at the store level. The interesting part, and we use so the methodology here is leading indicators to predict demand. So, typically retailers go year over year, make a prediction on sales. In this case, what we were doing in real time on a regular cadence, this was a weekly meeting with a follow-up at the end of the week to predict demand, to manage labor and equipment deployment, and lagging indicator to drive continuous improvement and innovation. So did what we predict meet the expected results that we got? And then it was, measure and adjust, if you will. The interesting thing about this slide, if I can pause for a second here, is we originally focused on what was in our control at CSL2 and CSL3. So, and what we quickly realized that we were missing a major player at the table, and that was our vendor. If we were going to meet our goals for CSL2 and CSL3 to delight our customers, our vendor played a key role in that. And when we engaged the vendor in conversations across the value stream, that is when we kicked into high gear and started meeting demand. So we were able to forecast for the vendor based on leading indicators, which allowed them to ramp up production or decrease production based on demand to meet our needs. So it was very exciting. That was very exciting learning for us. And we did use an open communication model. So we used a number of pieces of technology to drive engagement. So the initiative was conducted on Miro board. So each week the template was populated. This was a manual process to begin with. So we'll talk about continuous improvement in a second. But it was templated, and we went through the same metrics each week. So what we established, if you look at that value stream, is control points or metrics at each of the control points across the value stream. And the business owners, so whoever was responsible for that, spoke to that control point at every meeting. Now, when we initially set out on this, these meetings were long, and sometimes we didn't get through the entire data set. But as we trained it out and as people got used to it and engaged, these meetings became quite efficient, and that's what allowed us to move the needle. And again, you'll see on the 5 whys there I speak to later, but we also included, is there activity that we're doing that we don't add value, or is there something that's a barrier for us? And we use the 5 whys to get to the root cause. And then all of this was functionally scoreboarded so that we had a litmus test on whether we were having success or not.
So Peter, so this is Miro, which is essentially a digital whiteboard.
Correct.
And how often do you huddle and use the board? People engage with the board, add post-its, do updates and so forth.
So once we've established, so we typically use this for innovation and ideation. So if we've got something new coming, or we're visioning for something, we will use Miro to have that engagement on new initiative. Once that's been planned, we typically take the activity into an MS Teams planner for the execution. But to your point, we would use this by department weekly as a digital whiteboard.
Yeah, and so different organizations will have different answers to that question. So when Victoria Jordan from Emory Healthcare did her presentation on how they've deployed tiered huddle system, they do tiers daily, and they have physical whiteboards. So there's literally is a whiteboard in a hall and a unit standing around the whiteboard. Just like in your DC, you probably have some physical whiteboards or huddle boards in the DCs, right?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, good. That's great.
So
I don't see any questions from people. So let's go on to the next point here. Yeah.
Yes. So, and you know, the whole idea of looking at that data and making database decisions is to improve execution. So we call it WDYD, what did you do? And we capture those tactical initiatives and we assign them. So if you think about X to Y by when, by who, that's what we capture here. We capture who's going to take care of it, what does it entail, what's the activity, and when does that activity have to happen. And we also capture the start, stop, continue, which is our continuous innovation and improvement model when somebody brings up either a barrier point or something that adds no value that we should stop doing. So, and then these are reviewed as part of that huddle as well on whatever the cadence is.
So some of these people have day jobs. They got real jobs, and so they're getting. How do they find the time to do work on improvement? Improvement things.
So this is where the PMO comes in for us. So when we identify that there's a project or there's a process or a project improvement that needs to happen, that gets facilitated by the PMO.
Yeah.
And then there's a separate tactical group that's assigned to the improvement to bring it back to the team. So the huddle is not a place to solution.
Got it. Yep.
So then we talk about, I wanted to highlight this as continuous innovation and improvement and how we shifted the work stream. So once we'd established and had proof of concept for the control points that shifted the overall in-stock improvement for us, then what we did is went to our analytics team, and this was again driven by our PMO, and we created an automated those control points in the value stream. Now the work effort shifted not from collecting and managing the data, but to the story that the data told us and the activity that was an outcome of what the data is showing us. So it allowed us to be more agile, excuse my French, to be more agile as a result of leveraging technology in real time.
So this is an interesting chart, Peter, because if you think about it, you, in some respects, you would like to avoid having holes be addressed upstream, too far upstream, because you got lead time to contend with, right?
Yep.
So if you got a hole in a store and it's got to be filled and you got to go back to placing an order, then it's going to be a while before it gets to the store. On the other hand, if you have too many being filled by DC available, then it could mean you're in an overstock situation in the DC. And in years like 2023, you want to keep working capital low, right?
Well, that's the value of real-time data. It shifts both ways. And what I mean by that is the data will speak to you about demand and trend, and you can react to, as you've alluded to, being over-indexed in inventory versus demand. Yeah. So it works both ways, high demand, and when we have an ebb in demand, it allows us by using leading indicators to react.
And you're using a foundational ERP system that then the data is organized, and you're sitting Power BI on top of that to do the analytics and the charts dynamically, right?
That is correct. We do use BI from tables in our ERP.
And then you're using SharePoint as a way to create a window to create user interfaces, so to speak, from various user communities so that there's visibility for all this. That's
exactly right. And they're interconnected.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
So the next little case study is more about internal. So again, our DCs who are early adopters in how we deploy a huddle, and we took the lessons we learned from the bird feed model, And then what we did is we built that internally. So we said, what's the value stream within each of the facilities that we have direct control on? So one level down in terms of a huddle for execution. So our problem statement here was our inbound and our pick and ship were not meeting system demand. In other words, customers were buying more stuff than we could pick off the shelf, we could get inbound, put away, pick off the shelf, and get to our stores. So our objective was to improve individual line rate to meet system demand at CSL2. So that's customer service level 2, which would have an impact on time in full delivery. So I'm going to speak to the results first, which
There's
is
a question. There's a quick question for you, Peter. I think it's a good question because I realize it is something you address. So vendor connection to the system real time. You guys actually did some connectivity with your vendors, right?
yeah, we do. It's ongoing work with us, but it was a separate project for vendor connectivity, and where we allow two-way communication, so that vendors can support us with demand.
Yep. Good. Thank you.
So I just talk about, this will just be two quick slides that just demonstrate over time by using the huddle model in a very short period of time, we would get significant improvement in our DC. So this is measured by facility. So we have 2 distribution centers in Ontario and 2 in Red Deer, Alberta. So in Ontario, we saw a 20% improvement over the second quarter with a continued focus on process and improvements in training. And in our West facility, our Liberty facility, who are really early adopters, they were able to achieve a 100% improvement in the same period. And when we look at stabilizing it across the organization, you can see consistent improvement between all facilities using the same program. And then what that highlighted as part of the huddles is the need for continuous improvement. So a move to wave picking versus batch picking, just another way we deliver tickets to the floor. And then we're currently piloting a full ASN program, which will allow efficiencies at our receiving level. So again, all of that was facilitated by the huddles.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just another depiction of end-to-end through the facility and how we approached it. So again, each process flow will have a different by business unit, but the concept of the process walk, and that's really the concept that we take to the teams, is the end-to-end process walk where each process owner speaks to at the individual control point to their metric. So this allows for that collaboration, open communication in real time, because everybody, all the stakeholders are at the table. And then the nice thing we did with all of our linking to BI as improvement with the analytics team is we were driving reporting in real time. And then it became decisions and discussions made on real data and leading indicators. This is just a depiction of our scorecard. It is a cut and paste of the actual scorecard. What this does is it adjusts dates over time, and it speaks to both leading and lagging indicators. So the teams know what inbound looks like, what their demand looks like for picking, and what their demand looks like for shipping in advance. This allows them to deploy labor and equipment and plan better. And each we have 4 of these because we have 4 facilities, and each facility owner speaks to these. Now, the DC huddles, they have a daily cadence, and that's due to the transactional activity. Lots of stuff happens, lots of complex stuff happens in those facilities every day. So a daily huddle once a day. It's a 30-minute huddle, and that helps them to manage their business and create efficiencies in the org is how we achieve that.
So the intent here is to give people visibility, transparency to not only what has to get done, but what got done.
Correct. So the lagging indicator says, when we made the decision, did we achieve the expected result? And then that drives the start, stop, continue conversation if we did not. Right.
Gotcha.
This is a duplicate of a slide that we've seen before, but it's important to note that, discussion is great and ideation is fantastic, but where the rubber hits the road for us is when we take that discussion and ideation and create activity from it.
Yeah.
What did you do in the case of the DC every day to move the needle in operational efficiency?
So, everybody's heard bias for action, bias for results. This is how you can talk the talk, which is bias for action, bias for results, but you got to walk it, right? So this is how you walk those two principles, so to speak. Yeah. Okay, good.
And then again, we use the Lean 5 Whys methodology because we have a tendency at stopping at and putting a Band-Aid versus let's get to the root cause that may solve several other Band-Aid problems for us. So the teams are challenged in the stop, start, continue, or that innovation process to drive to the root cause, again, to alleviate any type of busy work, creating efficiencies, and to remove several barriers by addressing the root.
In the FMEA process, Peter, there's sort of two sides of the FMEA table. There's the identification of the failure modes, and then the what they call the RPN score, the risk priority number.
Yep.
And then on the right side is the countermeasures. So you got the failure mode and the why. Do you do the failure mode prioritization, and then do you do the countermeasure? Is there PMO? I assume the PMO is working on the countermeasures.
The PMO takes the latter two items on. Correct.
Yep.
So the teams in the DCs or store operations, they would be identifying the route for a solution, and then that's taken out of the huddle, and we tactically attack that differently.
And then do you actually attempt to see if the RPN score went down? In other words, how do you sort of confirm that the failure mode has been lessened or mitigated?
There's always a measurement and an audit process, and the PMO also drives that. And they identify that, to your point, by priority. So critical items that are processes in the business are measured as a priority more frequently than others. Good. So we do a measurement.
Yep.
So it's important to point out, because in many as we went through this journey and stood up huddles, there's a tendency to because it feels wrong and is new, there's a tendency to do stuff the same way we always did it. So we always talk about what a huddle is not as well. It's not a time to plan projects. This is action oriented. What do you do to drive efficiency? It's not a time for global problem solving. And when I say global, I mean enterprise wide. It's not a time to be negotiating any changes to process. It doesn't replace your strategy, ideation, and planning meetings as a team, and it's not designed for that. And it's not designed to do deep dives on new initiatives or data. That all is taken away. And we do execute on all of this stuff, but it's not in our performance huddle meetings.
So that's great. And I've got one of the things that we talked about in previous webinars is these what we call these 5 key words. And the reason I put this slide in is because I think a lot of what you've done really speaks to you addressing these 5 abstraction, so to speak. So communication, lots more communication.
You bet.
A lot more alignment because people are, again, talking across silos and addressing critical flow issues, things that were causing things not to flow smoothly from end to end.
Mm-hmm.
And then visibility, obviously, clearly the use of Power BI and the use of data and facts and making that visible to the people that are the right things visible to the right people at the right time, critical component to your success. And then holding people accountable. You talked about, what did you do, right? So sounds like you got a lot of accountability conversations. And then nobody pulls off what you guys pulled off. Anybody that's in the real world, nobody pulls it off and not be disciplined. It doesn't happen. So I think these 5 words are a pretty good summary of some of the key elements of the solution that you've been working on at Peavey.
Yeah, and it continues to evolve. Again, it's a continuous improvement for us, and continuous innovation is a daily, not a daily buzzword, but we live and die by it every day.
One of the things you and I were talking about, Peter, before we started up was I think it may be a subtlety. For some, I think it might be very obvious, but for some, it also might be subtle. The role of facilitator in this process, and running huddles and managing the energy around huddles, and making sure that within a huddle it's efficient, between huddles it's efficient, and you talked about that. You share with the audience your thoughts on the importance of huddle and huddle facilitators and how you address training them.
Yeah, so we think enough about facilitation and the merits of facilitation, and how what a talent it requires and how difficult it is to do in some cases. So we've created a whole training module on meeting best practices and how to facilitate a meeting, so that as we stand facilitators up, they have the tools at their disposal to go on to create a great meeting, and that also drives efficiency in the organization.
Yep. Any other things that you feel like you'd like to share that that wasn't part of your slides that you put together? Any other closing sort of learnings, tips, lessons?
I would just like to go back to that sort of patience and discipline, because this was a heavy lift and a long runway that we had to go down to roll this out organizationally. And it's exciting to see the engagement and excitement and the change that it's driving in the organization. And there's lots of cross-functional ancillary benefits. So if you think about cross-functional learnings, then you think about enterprise efficiency that comes out of collaboration. It's very exciting to be part of this journey, for sure.
Yeah. I was involved at the front end when we did the pilot, and so I sat in on a number of those huddles and actually facilitated some of the early ones. But one thing that struck me is I started to listen to people from different spots in the value stream. Mm-hmm. I was sitting there and I was listening to the conversations, and people weren't shy. They started jumping in and sharing stuff, and it was like people were sitting there and they, like you said, Peter, they had blinders on and heads down, the silo sort of approach to things. And all of a sudden, people started sharing information as people started talking about, this is what's breaking down, this is what isn't working. And it's like people lifted their heads up and the blinders came off. And I mean, it was literally almost aha moments. People were saying, hell, I didn't know that was happening. It was really interesting.
Yeah. So that is a benefit, and that allows us to move a lot forward quickly and be more agile as an organization, for sure.
Yeah, good. Okay, so Peter, thanks again for taking time to share this with us. Great job, great story. I enjoyed hearing it again. Thank you for doing that. And so real quickly, we may be able to give Peter some time back, which in today's world is a nice thing to do, right? As you know, lots of meetings. So we've got some upcoming webinars that I want to let our audience know about. Behavior management. So Peter can relate to this. So, you know, we've got current state and then we design a future state. And so then we build out the future state process. And then we just don't assume that people are going to adopt new habits and they're going to adopt new behaviors and they're going to behave the way they have to behave to have the future state perform the way we designed it to perform. And so, as all of us know, a lot of times that doesn't happen. So people bring old habits to new future state processes. And so how do you do a better job of making sure that we're getting the required ideal behaviors from your future state process designs? And Paul Fagelsta is a member of IISE who stepped forward and said, hey, I'd like to do a webinar for you, Scott. And he sent me some slides, and I looked at it and I said, wow, this is great stuff. So I think it really fits well in the theme of performance excellence and operational excellence. So I'm looking forward to having Paul share his wisdom with us next Thursday, the 19th, from 11 to 12. And the link to register for that webinar is right there, and Safe has posted that for you in the chat. And then on the 9th of February, I said this says January, but it's the 9th of February, excuse the typo. On the 9th of February, Jared Frederici, from a colleague of mine from the 48 group and a master black belt, he will be doing the third webinar in the trilogy, the supply chain management trilogy. And he'll be focusing on what I consider to be cutting edge principles and methods for supply chain management that will serve us in a year like we're facing in 2023. So an integrated systems engineering view at how we can do a better job of innovating and breaking some paradigms and facing and managing some of the challenges that we'll face and potential disruptions in the coming year. So those two webinars are just ahead. We've got February and March planned also. A great case study. So one of the things we're doing this year is bringing you more practical case studies. I had an opportunity in November to spend a day at Consumers Energy in Grand Rapids near Detroit. And Consumers Energy is the largest utility provider in Michigan. Pretty much everything outside of Detroit is provided by them: gas, electricity. They have been building a business process excellence program for the past 3 years, and the VP for that program will be sharing how they've done what they've done and some of the results they've achieved. So regardless of whether you're not in utilities, there will be a lot to learn from Chris when she shares her Consumers Energy story. And then on the 9th of March, we'll shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about integrated Lean Sigma. How do you train it and how do you do it? So that's the focus of that webinar. And then on the 28th of March, we'll have another best practice case study. Flex, you can Google them. They're a very large multi-billion-dollar company, global company. And Eduardo Toledo, who is the VP of quality for Flex, will be sharing their 20-year journey in operational and organizational excellence. And he'll talk about how they've gotten to where they are and what's ahead for them. So we got a great lineup in Q1, and I encourage you to join us if you're so inclined. I want to also put a plug in for our annual conference, which is in New Orleans in May, the 20th through the 23rd. I'm really looking forward to it. The Council on Industrial and Systems Engineers, which is a group I belong to, 22 of the senior leaders of the industrial and systems engineering function in North America are putting together a program a one day on Sunday, almost a one day workshop, so to speak. 4 great sessions that I think you'll get a lot of benefit from, and a great opportunity for you to come and enjoy New Orleans, but also come and develop new build your professional network and meet some new people and have a lot of fun. Meet some of our students in industrial and systems engineers. So thank you for participating today. Thanks to our sponsors. If you want to get more information about IISE, James Swisher is your point of contact. I provided his contact information. If you'd like to learn more about the webinar series or our operational analytics certification program, feel free to reach out to me. We've got a survey for you. Peter and I would like to get your feedback. We'd like to know how we did for you. So if you'll take time to fill that out for us, I'd appreciate it. And that's it. So we're going to give you 10 minutes back. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you next time. And Peter, once again, thank you very much for taking time to share your experience and wisdom. Thank you, Peter.